that what is happening in Gaza due to Israel's actions, regardless of the justifications for those actions, is unacceptable and cannot continue. Last Thursday, 14 members of the Council voted in favor of a draft resolution demanding an immediate and unconditional ceasefire, the release of all hostages held by Hamas, the lifting of the severe humanitarian blockade of Gaza, and the provision of safe and unhindered access to those in need. Unfortunately, the United States blocked that resolution, using its veto for the 7th time on this issue. A little earlier, however, the Council did manage to agree on a statement, albeit a very general one, condemning Israel's attack on the sovereign state of Qatar. The UN has so far failed to stop the bloodshed in Gaza or to compel Israel to return to the path of a two-state solution. However, over the past 2 days during the international conference at the General Assembly, important symbolic steps have been taken, with a number of countries recognizing Palestinian statehood. This is a belated but extremely important signal to Israel's military and political leadership, a signal that justice for the Palestinian people must be restored. Sadly, it took nearly 2 years of Israeli operations in Gaza and over 65,000 civilian Palestinian deaths for this to happen. Recognition of the Palestinian state is not a favor to Ramallah. It is a historic duty owed to the Palestinian people, one that should have been fulfilled nearly 80 years ago. Russia has been calling for this for decades. Let me remind you that the USSR recognized the state of Palestine back in 1988. Israel, however, not only remains deaf to the appeals of the international community, but, encouraged by its American allies, responds with threats, claiming that the wave of new recognitions of Palestinian statehood is allegedly a reward to Hamas for the October 7th terrorist attack. In West Jerusalem, there is open talk of formally annexing the West Bank following the high-level week. That is why a clear signal must be sent now that such steps are unacceptable. We must certainly not give in to any threats of retaliatory measures. As the Secretary General said, only our actions can put an end to what is happening. Colleagues, the international community's united support for the Palestinian people's aspirations to live peacefully in their own state is the momentum we must collectively build. We must work to translate into practical reality. The main task right now is to ensure that the crisis in Gaza is resolved not through brutal facts on the ground, in other words, by completely clearing out all Palestinians, which is the aim of Israelis' leadership, nor through their displacement from the enclave and its commercial redevelopment, as proposed by various radical Western plans. Rather, this must be done through humane, civilized diplomacy that unites efforts within the UN and regionally among Arab states seeking to help their Palestinian brothers and sisters. Palestinians are not the object of social experiments. They are a people with the same right to sovereign existence and development as our own nations. But diplomatic efforts of any kind will only succeed if Israeli authorities abandon their reliance on military solutions. They must recognize that this approach will bring nothing good for Israel itself, which simply cannot develop and live in security in the context of a military operation on all fronts. The second key element is for Washington to recognize all this as well and stop viewing UN fora and multilateral diplomacy as an enemy that supposedly obstructs American diplomacy on the ground. Unfortunately, what we currently see is the exact opposite. Both Israel and the United States continue to claim that West Jerusalem is acting humanely in its fight against terrorism. This is how official Israeli reports justify strikes on hospitals and schools, attacks on humanitarian convoys, and the deaths of women, children, and aid workers. Hate speech and propaganda bring ordinary Israeli soldiers to kill dozens of innocent Palestinian civilians daily, sincerely believing that this is all for the greater good of the Israeli state. In this way, for nearly 2 years, West Jerusalem has been systematically constructing and imposing a distorted narrative in which Palestinians are second-class people who can be exterminated, displaced, starved, and killed even directly at humanitarian aid distribution points. UN leadership, its humanitarian bodies, and even member states calling for a ceasefire and humanitarian access are unabashedly labeled by Israeli representatives as terrorist accomplices. This radical, distorted rhetoric, along with West Jerusalem's clear intent to continuously escalate the situation in the region, a situation that is already drawn in Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Yemen, and Qatar, undermines any progress towards a peaceful resolution of the Middle East crisis. The Israeli strike on Doha, one of the key mediators in negotiations, clearly demonstrated that Israel is not aiming for diplomacy, but rather for endless war, even at the cost of the remaining hostages who, with this war, are left with no chance of survival. It is also clear that Israel's strategic endgame is to take full control of all Palestinian territory, both Gaza and the West Bank. Annexation plans are discussed openly, not only without hesitation, but with pride and a sense of fulfilling a historic mission. And these are not just empty words. Gaza is being systematically cleared, carved up into so-called security zones that shrink by the day. The West Bank is being built up with new Israeli settlements, and fanatical settlers in the world's worst traditions of the colonialism of past centuries abuse the Palestinian population and drive them from their homelands as the authorities stand by and do nothing. An aggressive settlement policy is being actively implemented, one where Palestinians are at best relegated to the role of ghetto residents and at worst to exiles. Mr. President, this picture of horrifying injustice, violence, and trampling of human dignity unfolding in the occupied Palestinian territory is a call to action. This is what hundreds of thousands of people around the world are demanding from us in the street. An end to the senseless bloodshed in Gaza and the liberation of Palestine. This is also what Israeli hostages and their families are demanding as they protest in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and other cities, calling for a comprehensive deal to release prisoners and end the fighting. No one wants war, not ordinary Palestinians nor ordinary Israelis. This heartfelt plea was voiced by Israeli citizen Galit Dan, whose daughter and mother were killed on October 7th. She said, "I don't want revenge, I want hope in the name of those who have lost everything and those who can still be saved. Please stop the war." End of quote. Mr. President, we believe in the power of multilateral diplomacy. Although it has not always succeeded, over the 80 years of the UN's existence, it has been thanks to this diplomacy that the planet has avoided a third world war. We're confident that it can also help resolve the long-standing Middle East crisis. This requires the collective will of the international community, expressed not only in declarations from high rostrums, but in concrete actions. We strongly urge our American colleagues to cast aside their rigid positions and engage in the real efforts that the UN Security Council must undertake in accordance with its mandate to maintain international peace and security. This will only benefit your closest ally, whose security cannot be ensured by force alone. The fact that such an approach is a dead end has been proven by decades of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It is time to recognize that only a diplomatic settlement of the Palestinian issue based on the two-state solution can guarantee lasting peace in the Middle East, security for Israeli citizens, and the just aspirations of the Palestinian people for their own state. Otherwise, endless and senseless bloodshed will continue, claiming ever more civilian lives, sowing discord between new generations of Arabs and Israelis, and destroying any prospects that they might one day coexist peacefully and develop freely. This must not be allowed. We trust that other reasonable members of the international community share this view. We stand ready to work with them to finally make a peaceful and prosperous Middle East a reality. This is a historic responsibility of the UN, its Security Council, and each and every one of us. We urge that it be fulfilled. Thank you.
Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Tell us what you think in the comment section. Like and share the video, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our African videos. It's the best way to support us.